January 2024, Gol Airlines, one of Brazil's largest carriers, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, allowing it to keep flying while restructuring its debts without the fear of creditors seizing its assets. But just 24 hours later, something unprecedented happened. LATAM Airlines, one of Gol's direct competitors, approached Gol's leasing company with an audacious proposition. They were willing to take any Boeing 737 lease that was available, but there was one problem. LATAM had never operated a 737. In fact, they exclusively operated Airbus A320 family aircraft. You see, introducing an entirely different aircraft type requires completely different maintenance procedures and operational complexity that airlines typically avoid. And here was LATAM trying to poach a plane they had never flown, but the situation was so bad that they had no choice. And it gets stranger. At Castellón Airport in Spain, brand new Airbus A320neo aircraft, some barely a year old, are being systematically stripped apart. These aren't old planes being retired. They are modern jets being cannibalized for parts. Their engines have become so valuable that they are now worth more than the entire aircraft they are attached to. So what's really happening in aviation that is making airlines so desperate for aircraft that they're willing to tear apart brand new planes and fundamentally change their entire operations just to keep flying? The answer reveals a crisis that's quietly reshaping the entire future of air travel. In March 2023, Flair Airlines, an ultra-low-cost carrier based in Canada, found itself in an extraordinarily difficult position. The airline had to issue an embarrassing apology after cancelling several flights at the last minute. The culprit? A New York-based leasing company called Airborne Capital had just seized 4 of their Boeing 737 aircraft for late payment. While the incident initially appeared to be a straightforward case of financial mismanagement, the truth revealed something far darker about the state of global aviation today. Flair Airlines CEO Stephen Jones quickly came forward to address the situation. He admitted that yes, the airline had been late on some payments to their lessors, but the amount in question was merely around $1 million. According to Jones, this sum represented less than half a day's worth of sales for the airline. Hardly a catastrophic financial emergency for an operating carrier. While aircraft repossessions aren't entirely unprecedented in the aviation industry, repossessing aircraft for missing such a relatively small payment is exceptionally rare. In fact, airlines and lessors normally do their absolute best to avoid such drastic measures, as repossessions disrupt operations, damage relationships, and create logistical headaches for everyone involved. But according to Jones, there was something far more sinister at play. He alleged that the repossessions weren't really about the late payment at all. Instead, the lessors had found new customers willing to pay higher rates for those same aircraft, and the late payment was merely a convenient legal pretext to reclaim the planes and lease them to someone else at a premium. In essence, Flair had been outbid for its own aircraft. But this wasn't an isolated incident. In 2024, a strange but shocking event unfolded between LATAM and Gol Airlines that would further demonstrate just how desperate the aviation industry had become for aircraft. In January of that year, Gol Airlines, a major Brazilian carrier that exclusively operates Boeing 737 aircraft, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. This legal mechanism allowed them to continue operating while restructuring their debts under the supervision of a court based in New York City. Crucially, Chapter 11 protection prevents creditors from seizing a company's assets, which is obviously essential if the airline wants to keep flying during its reorganization. Here's where things get interesting. Just one day after Gol's Chapter 11 filing was announced, Chilean carrier LATAM Airlines reportedly contacted several of Gol's aircraft lessors with an audacious proposition. LATAM informed these leasing companies that they would gladly take any Boeing 737 leases that might become available. This might sound like routine business, except for one crucial detail. LATAM exclusively operates Airbus A320 family aircraft. Taking on 737s would mean introducing an entirely different aircraft type into their fleet, requiring different pilot training, maintenance procedures, and operational complexity. To underscore their seriousness, LATAM even began posting job advertisements in Brazil, specifically targeting pilots who were already type-rated on the 737. Gol Airlines accused LATAM of opportunistically exploiting its vulnerable financial position, essentially trying to poach aircraft while Gol was at its weakest. LATAM, for its part, defended its actions as standard business practice, arguing that the company was in desperate need of additional capacity to sustain its operations and meet growing demand, and that their outreach was simply part of regular business strategy. So why are airlines so desperate that they're going to the extreme length of poaching competitors' aircraft and fundamentally changing their entire fleet strategy? These videos take a lot of time and research to create, so if you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to support the channel. To understand this unprecedented crisis, we need to go back to the 2010s. The decade had been an incredibly hectic period for both aircraft manufacturers and airlines, as the industry experienced a wave of fleet renewal on a scale never before seen in commercial aviation history. Nearly every aircraft type was either being replaced or significantly updated with new technology. In January 2016, Airbus's A320neo entered commercial service, followed by the larger and ultimately more popular A321neo variant a year later. Boeing wasn't far behind either. In May 2017, their latest 737 MAX 8 entered service, with the larger MAX 9 following just under a year after that. These weren't minor updates. They represented generational leaps in efficiency, promising fuel savings of 15 to 20% compared to their predecessors. Airlines and leasing companies responded with unprecedented enthusiasm, placing massive orders for these newer variants. By the end of 2017, Airbus had accumulated a backlog of almost 5,800 A320neo family aircraft waiting to be built and delivered. Boeing's 737 MAX wasn't far behind, with a backlog of approximately 4,700 jets. The industry had essentially created a massive wave of new, more efficient aircraft types designed to replace nearly every legacy model in service. Looking at these developments, industry analysts and leasing companies predicted that demand for older variants would inevitably decline in the coming years as the new generation of planes took over. And then came 2020. When COVID-19 shut down global air travel, demand for new aircraft evaporated virtually overnight. Airlines cancelled or deferred deliveries, desperately trying to conserve cash as their revenue streams disappeared. But perhaps more significantly for our story, the pandemic created an unprecedented surplus of existing aircraft that nobody had anticipated. Airlines parked thousands of planes in deserts and empty airports around the world. Iconic images emerged of vast fleets sitting idle in places like Victorville, California, and Teruel, Spain. The resale value of older models, those 737NGs and legacy A320s that airlines had planned to retire in an orderly fashion, collapsed significantly. With resale values now dropping, this had an immediate and severe impact on airlines' balance sheets. Aircraft that had been carried as valuable assets suddenly represented potential losses. Getting rid of them became a priority rather than a measured strategic decision. As a result, the leasing prices for these aircraft suddenly plummeted, and the availability of cheap jets created what appeared to be a perfect opportunity for new startup carriers and struggling airlines alike. New low-cost airlines like Canada Jetlines, Avalo, and Breeze launched operations by taking advantage of these rock-bottom lease rates and abundant aircraft availability that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. According to research published in Science Direct, approximately 46 new airlines started operating between 2020 and 2022 globally. But this trend wasn't limited to ambitious startups. Even struggling established airlines like Norwegian Air saw this as an opportunity to restructure their finances, partly by negotiating more affordable lease agreements on aircraft that would have cost them substantially more just a year earlier. But things were about to take a dramatic turn. As COVID-19 restrictions began easing, the aviation industry's recovery began gradually in early 2023. But by mid-year, the pace of recovery became nothing short of extraordinary. According to data from the International Air Transport Association, total passenger traffic in 2023 rose by a staggering 37% compared to 2022 levels. By April 2023, domestic air travel had not just recovered, it had actually surpassed pre-pandemic levels, registering at 2.9% above April 2019 traffic numbers. This represented a remarkable milestone considering the devastation the industry had experienced just 3 years earlier. This explosive surge in travel demand triggered a dramatic reversal in aircraft markets that caught many industry predictions off guard. Those unwanted planes from 2021, the ones that airlines couldn't give away, suddenly became highly sought-after assets. By October 2023, single-aisle aircraft inventory availability had plummeted to levels 60% lower than the same point in October 2021. The surplus had vanished. Moreover, the tables had now turned dramatically for aircraft leasing companies. During the pandemic, they had been forced to accept delayed payments or agree to arrangements where airlines paid only for the hours they actually flew. Now these same leasing companies suddenly found themselves with unprecedented pricing power. Airlines needed aircraft immediately, and lessors could now essentially dictate their terms. But despite this scramble to deploy every available aircraft, the airlines and the lessors couldn't keep pace with surging demand, and the market had swung from glut to shortage in a matter of months. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. There were two other problems that were further fueling this aircraft shortage, problems that would transform a challenging situation into a full-blown crisis. You see, when Airbus launched its revolutionary A320neo, it became an instant success, primarily due to its engines, which offered superior range and excellent efficiency. While the aircraft was available with two engine options, one in particular generated enormous enthusiasm: the Pratt & Whitney PW1100G geared turbofan engine. As a concept, the geared turbofan represents a brilliant piece of engineering. This engine design incorporates a gear reduction system, essentially a gearbox, positioned between the large fan at the front and the high-pressure core behind it. This allows the fan to spin at one speed that's optimal for efficiently moving large volumes of air, while the engine core spins faster at a speed that's ideal for the combustion process. This reduces the need for a high number of compressor and turbine stages, making the engine not only lighter and more compact, but also significantly more fuel efficient than conventional designs. The performance advantages were so compelling that the geared turbofan became the engine of choice not just for the A320neo, but also for newer narrow-body aircraft like the Airbus A320 and Embraer's E2 jet family. However, problems began emerging almost immediately. Indigo and Go First in India, both early customers of the Airbus A320neo family, started experiencing an unusually high number of reliability issues with the GTF engine family. India's operational environment proved particularly challenging. The combination of humid and hot weather, elevated pollution levels, and other environmental factors meant that the engines were experiencing wear at rates far exceeding Pratt & Whitney's predictions. Problems such as leaking bearing seals and various issues with cooling and combustion systems became particularly severe in coastal environments where salt-laden air created additional corrosion challenges. But then came the bombshell revelation, and the situation went from bad to catastrophic. In 2023, a new problem emerged, one that would have far greater implications for Pratt & Whitney and its customers worldwide. This time, the issue wasn't related to environmental conditions or operational factors. Instead, RTX, Pratt & Whitney's parent company, had discovered a fundamental manufacturing defect involving critical components in the high-pressure turbine section of their GTF engines. You see, Pratt & Whitney manufactures the rotating discs for the GTF's high-pressure turbine using powdered metal metallurgy, a sophisticated manufacturing process that creates components with specific material properties. What they discovered was that they had a contamination problem with the metal powder used to manufacture these components, leading to microscopic cracks forming in the turbine discs during operation. These micro cracks could potentially lead to premature fracture, causing a catastrophic uncontained failure with devastating consequences for aircraft and passengers. Regulators responded swiftly to this safety threat. The Federal Aviation Administration issued airworthiness directives requiring ultrasonic inspections of critical high-pressure turbine components and ordered that the discs be replaced immediately if they showed any signs of metal fatigue or anomalies. Initially, Pratt & Whitney attempted to downplay the severity of the situation. The company stated that only 200 engines required urgent inspection and assured their customers that these inspections and any necessary repairs could be accomplished during routine maintenance visits, causing minimal disruption to airline operations. But that assessment changed drastically in September of that same year, when Pratt & Whitney announced that an additional 2,000 GTF engines would need to be inspected for the contamination issue. But the news got worse. It turned out that repairing these engines wasn't something that could be accomplished during routine shop visits. Instead, Pratt & Whitney acknowledged that the inspection process required complete engine disassembly, specialized ultrasonic testing of multiple turbine components, and, in many cases, replacement of entire turbine disc assemblies, which would take approximately 250 to 300 days per engine. This was absolutely devastating news for airlines operating these brand new aircraft. Airlines suddenly found significant portions of their fleet sitting grounded on airport ramps, costing them millions in lost revenue while still accruing lease payments, insurance costs, and depreciation. India's Go First became one of the first major casualties. The airline, which had been one of the earliest customers to report problems with GTF engines, filed for bankruptcy in 2023. While they faced multiple business challenges, the widespread grounding of their newest aircraft, which they still had to make lease payments on, played a significant role in pushing the carrier into insolvency. Spirit Airlines in the United States became another high-profile victim. While the ultra-low-cost carrier certainly faced multiple challenges, including intense competition and changing consumer preferences, the grounding of a substantial portion of their A320neo fleet pushed them beyond the breaking point. Spirit became the first major airline in the United States to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in over a decade. But what came next made the situation even more bizarre. Because working GTF engines have become so scarce, their market value has skyrocketed to the point where the engines now cost more than the entire airplane they're mounted on. Think about the absurdity of that for a moment. A single engine, which under normal circumstances represents perhaps 15 to 20% of an aircraft's total value, is now worth as much as the fuselage, wings, landing gear, avionics, and entire interior combined. This unprecedented valuation has led to a practice that sounds almost unthinkable in commercial aviation. According to Reuters, Castellón Airport in eastern Spain, once a largely underutilized facility, has been transformed into a graveyard for aircraft caught in this global engine crisis. Airframes as young as 6 years old are being systematically stripped for their engines and other valuable components, which are then sold to airlines desperately searching for serviceable components. But this isn't an isolated phenomenon. Even the major leasing companies that own a substantial portion of global commercial aviation capacity have fundamentally changed their business model in response to this crisis. Rather than leasing complete aircraft to airline customers, as they've done for decades, these lessors are now, in some cases, stripping brand new planes apart, renting individual engines for approximately $200,000 per month, and selling the remaining airframe and parts as spares on the secondary market. In some scenarios, they're making more revenue from the disassembled components than they would from leasing the intact aircraft. As a direct result of this crisis, airlines and lessors are now refusing to take delivery of brand new aircraft they had ordered years earlier because they can't trust the reliability of the engines, which is further worsening the very shortage everyone is trying to solve. But we can't discuss the ongoing aircraft shortage without addressing one more problem: the 737 MAX crisis. In January 2024, a door plug violently blew out of an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 during mid-flight. While miraculously nobody suffered serious injuries in the incident, the event triggered intense scrutiny from the Federal Aviation Administration and resulted in production restrictions that remain in effect today. Boeing is currently limited to producing a maximum of 42 aircraft from the 737 family per month, and the company is struggling to even hit that constrained number consistently. The financial impact has been severe. Boeing posted a staggering loss of $11.8 billion in 2024, representing their worst financial performance in years. Multiple safety investigations remain ongoing, examining not just specific incidents, but Boeing's entire quality control culture and manufacturing processes. The FAA has made it unequivocally clear that Boeing will not be permitted to increase production rates until it can conclusively demonstrate comprehensive improvements to their quality control processes and manufacturing procedures. All of this means that even if Boeing wanted to dramatically ramp up production to help alleviate the global aircraft shortage, they simply can't. The regulatory constraints, combined with their own deep-seated internal manufacturing and quality problems, have effectively imposed a hard ceiling on how many aircraft they can deliver. The industry's ability to work its way out of this shortage depends partly on Boeing resolving these issues, but there's no clear timeline for when that might happen. So, what does it all mean? For passengers, this means higher fares, fuller flights, and fewer options. For airlines, it means a desperate scramble for capacity that shows no signs of ending anytime soon. And for the future of air travel, it means we're entering an era defined not by ambitious expansion plans, but by the harsh reality of too much demand chasing too few airplanes.